The clash between Bismarck and Napoleon III is not simply a personal duel, but a clash of two eras, two approaches to power and military management, where every step, every decision, becomes a living diagram of influence on the political and military map. Napoleon III, heir to the ambition and drama of Napoleon I, was accustomed to acting through the concentration of force, surprise, and personal charm. His command style is built on instant reaction, aggressive initiative, and the confidence that his presence and will can turn the tide. Bismarck, on the other hand, is the embodiment of rationality, systemic approach, and patience. His strategy is not based on spectacular attacks, but on the systematic calculation of resources, information management, and the use of structural logic, where every element, from the reserve to the petty official, functions within a single system. The French troops' color zones shimmer with localized bursts of activity, their lines of movement are fast and direct, and their artillery zones of impact are concentrated but limited. While the Prussian army and Bismarck's bureaucratic machine are depicted as a network in which each point is connected to several others, creating a nearly continuous control of space. From the first minutes of the maneuvers, it becomes clear that Napoleon will employ a strong strike tactic. He concentrates cavalry and infantry in key positions to break through the enemy's defenses and create psychological pressure, while activating artillery batteries to suppress specific areas. But Bismarck operates differently. Each attack is recorded, assessed, and redeployed. Reserve divisions move along predetermined routes, artillery positions are adjusted instantly, and supply lines remain inaccessible to the French. The speed of the French column's advance exceeds the reaction speed of individual Prussian battalions, but the system as a whole compensates for the delay, creating the effect of a stable front. On a psychological level, Napoleon attempts to impose the initiative through concentration. His commanders receive orders to react instantly, artillery crews rely on rapid information exchange, cavalry is prepared for surprise attacks, and infantry for lightning-fast maneuvers. But Bismarck employs the principle of systemic patience. Each unit knows its role, each position is connected to its neighbors, and local losses do not lead to disorganization, but merely activate premeditated corrective actions. For each unit of energy expended, the French troops achieve a temporary effect, while the Prussian army maintains stability and minimal losses, turning local aggression into a resource for strengthening the line. As the day progresses, Napoleon utilizes his engineering skills, temporary fortifications, water crossings, concealed maneuvers, all designed to exert rapid pressure and create surprise. But Bismarck takes every factor into account, the distribution of forces, with each battery, each reserve, and each officer assigned predetermined areas of responsibility, while enemy maneuvers are recorded, analyzed, and neutralized. Napoleon is confronted with the psychological effects. His soldiers are tired, the cavalry is overburdened by maneuvers, the artillery is expending shells, and each attack consumes increasingly more energy for diminishing returns. By the end of the first half of the battle, it becomes clear, Napoleon's speed and aggression are producing localized successes, but not a systemic advantage. Bismarck, on the other hand, demonstrates the power of patience and systemic approach. The front line remains stable, reserves are integrated, zones of control are continuous, and any attempt by the French to create chaos turns into an opportunity to redistribute resources and strengthen their positions. French aggression expends resources and morale, while the Prussian system maintains stability and strategic initiative, laying the groundwork for the decisive phase of the campaign. The second phase of the clash turns into a true duel of strategies. Napoleon III, realizing that simple frontal attacks are ineffective, begins to redistribute his forces, concentrating artillery and cavalry in narrow areas, creating the impression of a quick breakthrough. However, this concentration simultaneously becomes a weakness, as each maneuver requires precise timing, resources, and command communication. The density of fire and threat zones, individual batteries create elliptical fields of fire that intersect with the infantry, creating temporary, risk corridors for the Prussian troops. However, these corridors are instantly neutralized by the Bismarck system. Reserve battalions occupy vulnerable areas, and the artillery adjusts the firing angle, transforming the local Napoleon effect into a safe zone for Prussia. Bismarck, possessing not only strategic intelligence but also a precise analytical map of all interactions, utilizes the principle of control through information. Every officer knows where and when to move, every reserve maintains the ability to react instantly, and supply lines remain inaccessible to French intelligence. The system's response times are almost instantaneous across the entire army, although individual soldiers react more slowly, creating the illusion of vulnerability, which Napoleon perceives as an opportunity. European aggression appears impressive at the local level, but on a strategic scale, it expends resources faster than it produces results. On a psychological level, Napoleon attempts to use his personal presence and charisma to mobilize troops, accelerate the tempo, and create panic in the enemy ranks. But Bismarck approaches morale differently. He takes fatigue into account, distributes the load, and uses every French maneuver to train his system, making combat a tool for strengthening troop discipline and readiness. The trade-off between energy expenditure and effectiveness. For the French army, local successes are achieved at a high cost in manpower and morale, while the Prussian system maintains a nearly constant efficiency and resilience ratio. Napoleon also tries tactical tricks, feint retreats, rapid outflanking movements through forests and hills to create gaps in the Prussian line, but Bismarck anticipates these maneuvers in advance. His system self-corrects, reserves occupy vacated positions, artillery is redeployed to new threat sectors, and infantry lines shift to maintain frontal density. Every Napoleonic maneuver becomes a test of the resilience of the Prussian system, and the density of lines and zones of control remain unbroken despite the European army's attempts to penetrate vulnerable points. Gradually, Napoleon's attacks begin to be effective only in isolated, localized areas. A few batteries suppress the Japanese riflemen. In our scenario, French successes become noticeable, but they are temporary, requiring enormous effort to consolidate. Bismarck, on the other hand, employs the principle of slow pressure and patient counterattack. Each French advance is captured, redistributed, and neutralized with minimal effort, creating the impression of control without active initiative. This turns the battle into a psychological chess game. Napoleon sees localized successes and perceives them as opportunities for a breakthrough, but each attempt proves a trap, because Bismarck's system adapts instantly. By the middle of the second phase, it becomes clear that Napoleon's strategy, based on instant concentration of forces and speed, is increasingly unworkable. The French army is tiring, the artillery is expending shells, the cavalry is exhausted by maneuvers, the infantry is losing momentum, and every localized success requires a colossal effort. Bismarck, meanwhile, preserves resources, morale, and the stability of the line, allowing the enemy to expend resources and make mistakes without risking his own position. The effectiveness of the Prussian system remains stable, while the return on Napoleon's actions gradually declines, turning localized gains into short-lived blips incapable of turning the tide. Psychologically, this is also a turning point. Napoleon is under pressure when he realizes that his usual methods are not yielding systemic results, while Bismarck continues to act quietly but convincingly, like the conductor of a complex symphony, where every instrument works for long-term effect. A moment arrives when speed no longer matters, but patience, coordination, and structural logic decide. French aggression becomes a test of the resilience of the Prussian system, and Bismarck demonstrates that battles can be won not by force and charisma, but by precision, calculation, and the ability to manage the enemy's resources, time, and morale. The third phase of the battle becomes a demonstration of how Bismarck's systemic thinking surpasses Napoleon's traditional understanding of force and speed. By this point, the French army is already exhausted by incessant maneuvers, the artillery is overwhelmed by constant repositioning and fire adjustments, the cavalry is losing momentum, and the infantry lacks time to recover. Napoleon attempts to compensate with personal authority, demonstrating his personal presence on the front line and making abrupt movements between batteries and detachments, but each such attempt to speed things up only wastes his own energy and attention. The costs of personal command and correcting local successes grow exponentially, while the return in the form of strategic advancement declines. Bismarck, however, operates with maximum resource conservation, employing the principle of sustainment and counterpressure. His system self-corrects instantly, reserve battalions plug any gaps, artillery batteries reorganize to target new threat zones, and cavalry and mobile detachments create the illusion of weak spots to lure the enemy, where fire and counterattacks become most effective. This appears as a dense network of control zones, where each sector of the front is protected by double lines, and individual enemy movements are detected and neutralized with minimal losses. Napoleon's local successes no longer work to his advantage, but to strengthen the resilience of the Prussian line. Every breakthrough attempt expends manpower, reduces morale, and simultaneously trains Bismarck's troops to react to unexpected maneuvers. Psychologically, the French emperor begins to feel the strain when he realizes that his usual methods, concentrated fire, speed of maneuver, decisiveness, cannot break a system in which every part of the army acts as a single organism. In contrast, Bismarck, remaining in the shadows, controls the battle through a command structure, information flows, and clear rules for redistributing forces. Even when Napoleon attempts to use engineering tricks, crossings, flanking maneuvers, and temporary fortifications to pressure narrow sections of the front, Bismarck's system adapts, reserve lines shift, firing positions change angles, and mobile groups create protection for any new, risk corridors. By the end of the day, the French army is forced to retreat to its original positions, redistribute its forces, and regroup. A critical performance indicator, Napoleon's efficiency declines, while the Prussian army maintains stability, morale, and readiness to continue the fight. From a strategic perspective, this demonstrates that system, endurance, and planning can surpass speed and localized concentration of force. Napoleon created temporary chaos, but Bismarck turned it into a tool for training and strengthening his own structure. The final analysis reveals that the confrontation is a clash of two eras and philosophies: Napoleon's personal charisma, speed, artillery power, and decisiveness versus Bismarck's patience, systemic approach, coordination, and information control. The European approach creates immediate local effects but expends resources and attention, while the Prussian system minimizes losses and maintains stability. The ratio of successful maneuvers versus expended energy shows Bismarck's clear advantage, despite Napoleon's local victories. The battle's conclusion confirms that in a strategic duel, the winner is not the one who is stronger in the moment, but the one who controls time, space, and resources. Napoleon III is forced to admit that personal skill, courage, and speed have their limits against a well-structured system, while Bismarck demonstrates that strategy, endurance, and adaptability can neutralize any local advantage. History records this lesson: effective command is not just about force and charisma, but the ability to anticipate, distribute, and maintain structure, turning the enemy's chaos into an instrument of control. And this battle forever changes the understanding of how wars are won, where patience and precision trump instantaneous force.